One was Taifa Leo, and one was the Sunday Nation. And my friend Abdi and his team at the ESCC had taken a survey, and they found out that traffic police in Kenya, in a month, they use the word collect. That is not the right word. Still, from Kenyans, 3 billion Kenyan shilling. That is traffic police peke yake. Hizi vijipesa mnatoa hivi. If national values meant anything, would they take them? No. And once again, 1967, Mwalimu Nyerere anasema rushwa ni adui ya taifa. Sitatoa wala sitapokea rushwa. Sitatoa wala sitapokea rushwa. Hapa kwetu rushwa ndiyo sheria. Ukiandikwa hivi kama huyu ndugu Mutembei, kwanza watu wake anataka waandike jamii yake yote hapa. Nataka waajiri wote, na asipo waajiri akienda nyumbani wanamlaani. Hata ajiri watu namna gani na yeye anahudumia polytichnic ya kitaifa? Si lazima mtu awe na sifa za kuajiriwa. That is what people expect of you. And those of you who are head teachers, I'm quite certain that's what happens to you. Rushwa is not just about giving money. It's about compromising standards, and that undermines patriotism, because patriotism is about being ready to die for your country, to do the right thing for your country, to speak the truth for your country. Are we prepared? We can preach all we want. I don't know who amongst you here are Catholics, Roman Catholics. Who is a Roman Catholic here? As if you are Roman Catholic and you know the Benedictine order, the Benedictine monks, the day when a person becomes a monk in the Benedictine order, the day he becomes a monk, he lies on the ground completely. And the whole idea is that he becomes changed. And because the Catholics for a long time believed that God only understood Latin, we since realized that God created all languages, but we still use Latin. That act in Latin is called conversatio morum. Conversatio morum. It means the complete change of the heart. Unakuwa kiumbe kipya. Kiumbe kipya. I'm urging us that the time is now, you young people, to change your hearts. Ngugi wa Thiong'o has written a book which I commend to the youngsters, Decolonizing the Mind. And Ngugi says, among other things, that we must change and decolonize our minds. Ili uwe kiumbe kipya. It can be done. It must be done. And when you want to change your mind, you must be teachable. In Greek mythology, there is a man called Socrates. How many of you have heard Socrates? He never wrote any book. It is his student Plato who wrote books, and there is a beautiful book which is called The Last Conversation with Socrates, written by Plato. And in Greek mythology, the oracle of Apollo wanted to know who was the wisest person in Greece. And the oracle went about Greece, and he met great Greeks, Aristophanes, Sophocles, Diogenes, and all of them, and they thought they were great. When they went to Socrates, he was asked, "Do you think you are wise?" And he said, "The only thing that I know is that I know nothing." The oracle went back and said the wisest man in Greece is Socrates, because he's the only one who knows that you cannot know everything. Humility is one of the best ingredients of patriotism. Are you humble? You can say many things in different ways. I'm about to finish. And there is an example that I now love giving, particularly to Christians, of how you speak the truth. And I'll repeat it again. In the Bible, there are two interesting characters. One of them is John the Baptist, known in Islamic tradition as Yahya, Nabi Yahya. He is the one who baptized Nabi Isa, or Jesus Christ. And he was very unhappy with a king called Herodias. Do you know that story? Because Herodias had an affair with one of his brother's wives. Do you know that story? So he came and said, Herodias, don't engage in adultery. And he was arrested and placed in prison. And when the king had a banquet, the daughter Salome danced so very well. Those of you who are called Salome should know that is the origin of your name. And Salome asked for John the Baptist's head, and he was beheaded. Because he spoke the truth. That is one way of speaking the truth. And the occasions when you must speak the truth. A patriot speaks the truth at all times, but in different ways, as dictated by context and circumstances. There is another person called Nathan. He was a prophet. He is sent to David, called the wood in Islamic traditions. And he goes to David and says, "Oh king, there was a kingdom. In that kingdom there was a rich man with many cattle, and there was also a poor person who had a ewe of a lamb which he kept as if it were his daughter. One day visitors came, and the rich man, instead of taking one from his flock, he went to the ewe of the lamb and slaughtered it. And David said, if there is such a one in my kingdom, he shall perish." And this is what Nathan said, "Oh David, oh king, it is you. It is you who has taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite and caused him to be killed by the sword of the Ammonite. The sword shall never leave your house." You see how Nathan spoke the truth? With the consequence that is the king himself who accused himself. Patriotism demands wisdom. A fool cannot be a patriot. You must be wise. And you are only wise when you have a teachable spirit. So we Kenyans, we must give meaning to patriotism. It is Josiah Mwangi Karaoke who said, our ability to sing our national anthem and to recite our national slogans is not patriotism. Nash, wengine wanafikiria tukiimba wimbo wa mataifa sasa sisi ni wazalendo. Nash, uzalendo ni vitendo. Then good governance as another pillar. What is good governance? Sasa in Kenya kila mtu analalamika kuna mko hapa in the devolved units. You know, in Arab tradition they talk about Alibaba and the 40 thieves. Excuse me, see your 40. They are legion. Unawaona kila mahali. Unamuona mtu ambaye anaitwa MCA kwenu. Mtu ambaye alikuwa fukara. Fukara. Miaka miwili iliyopita fukara. Mtotole kabisa anakuomba shilingi 50. Baada ya miaka miwili huyo mwenzetu anajenga jumba la kifahari. ana gari aina ya V8 ya shangingi, na akiingia makanisani ametengewa kiti mbele, na naomba asalimie watu wake, na anawasalimia. Good governance ni kujinyima. Good governance, ukitaka kuwa mhudumu mzuri lazima ujinyime. There is a book, because I'm talking to young people, I want you to read this book, Why Africa is Poor and What Africans Can Do About It, by Greg Mills. He says that there are two African leaders who, when they left office, one of them was Kenneth David Kaunda. After 24 years, he had only the equivalent of $8,000 in his account. 24 years. Mlinganisha na MCA after 2 years wa Kenya. Nyerere had only 2 houses, one in Msasani in Dar es Salaam and one in Butiama in his rural home, which had to be expanded for him by jeshi la kujenga taifa la Tanzania. Uzalendo ni na utawala bora, lazima ujitolee mhanga kwa maslahi ya watu. Because people tend to follow what you do, not what you say. They may follow what you say, but they want to see your words wedded to your deeds. National values. We talk about equity and equality. What is equity? What is equality? I'm about to annoy my host. But I will. But I'll excuse them. Equity is about thinking about everybody. So that what they have done here is thinking about everybody. Sign language is now part of our national language. The ability to recognize that there are others who are differently abled. And we don't take it for granted. Yesterday, a gentleman rang me from Enugu in Nigeria. I'd been to Nigeria last year, and he told me, I heard you say something, you talked about everything, but you did not mention person with disability. The next time you are coming to Nigeria, and I've seen you are coming in April, please make sure you mention person with disability. I said, I apologize, I will make sure. You make mistakes and you admit when you make mistakes. When you are doing the Constitution, there is a lady called Salome Mwigai. And when we were choosing the places where we were supposed to go to hold what was ultimately held at the Bomas Conference, we went to Kasarani. And we had chosen Kasarani, all of us, the 29 commissioners and I as the CEO. She came and said, no. You people, because you are able, you think people are going to climb stairs to go to Kasarani? No. That is how we ended at Bomas of Kenya, taking care of persons with disability. That is equity, that is equality. And I want to give you 2 examples, and then in 3 minutes I stop. How many of you love watching movies? If you don't love watching movies, there are 3 that I want you to watch, and documentaries, 3 young ones. The first one, the young people that I want you to watch, is Roots by Alex Haley. It is a true story about a character called Kunta Kinte, who was captured during slavery from Jufure village in the Gambia and taken to the United States of America, and Alex Haley is one of his descendants. Roots. Watch that. The second one that I want you to watch is a documentary, the best documentary ever done by a living African at that time, by Professor Ali Mazurui. Africa, a Triple Heritage. Watch that. The third one, a movie that I watched in 1982 as a young person, is Gandhi, dramatizing the life of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, otherwise known as Mahatma Gandhi. If you go to the University of Nairobi, you'll find a whole wing named for him and his statue, Gandhi. Why do I mention him? Because he was a patriot who believed in patriotism, who believed in selflessness, who believed in equity, and who believed that his country can only grow when you sacrifice for the lowest people. And this is what he did, among other things. When India and Pakistan were about to be partitioned, he fasted almost to death. And this is documented history. And in the dramatization, the British had already sown the seeds of partition of India and Pakistan. And he called the two leading lights at that time in India, Jawaharlal Nehru and Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And in the dramatization, he calls both of them and tells Nehru, who was much more of his student, he called him Panditji. I want you to allow Jinnah to be the first Prime Minister of India, to appoint every head of department a Muslim, because there was a struggle between Muslims and Hindu. And you, Panditji, serve him. And this is what Jinnah said. Gandhiji, everybody is not like you. It is either independent India or independent Pakistan or a civil war. And there was a civil war in which 1 million people lost their lives. Gandhi would have become the first Prime Minister of India, but he chose not to. Patriotism. And one day, after the civil war and he was fasting to death, a Hindu came to him saying, I don't want you to die, I'll stop my fast, stop fasting, begin eating, we'll stop the war. I know I'm going to hell. I killed a small boy who was a Muslim. And Gandhi told him, I know a way out of hell. He was a devout Hindu. I know a way out of hell. Go out into the streets, pick a little boy like this, the size of the boy that you killed. Bring it to your home. Bring him to your home and raise him as your child, and make sure you raise him like a Muslim. How many of you can do that? That is why Professor Gokhale called him the Mahatma, a great soul. In Hindu mythology, the greatest Mahatmas have only been two. One before the birth of Christ called Vidur and Gandhi. That is patriotism. And the last example I'm giving you from that movie is a real incident which you'll watch. When he had built his ashram. Ashram is a temple where people live as a community. And on that day, everybody performed every work. On that day, his own wife, Kastuba, and Kastuba has written a book called Kastuba, was rostered to clean the toilet. When the Mahatma came, the toilet had not been cleaned. And he asked who was rostered to clean the toilet. And he says, me. Say, why did you not clean the toilet? And he pushed her. Then she said, because I'm your wife. And he told her, all the more reason why you must clean the toilet. They both calmed down. And Kastuba said, Gandhiji, I'll clean the toilet. And this is what Mahatma said. You either clean it with joy or not at all. How many of you can find themselves in such a situation? Patriotism, uzalendo ni mzigo. Uzalendo ni mzigo. So when we talk about national values, and you only asked me to talk about national values, but I can't conclude without talking about chapter 6 of the Constitution, Article 73 going forward, that talks about the things that the leaders that you must have. Leaders, kiongozi ni nani? Mnamchagua kiongozi nani? Sifa za kiongozi ni nani? Kiongozi. Who are the leaders who lead you amongst your communities? And the principle here, who I want to believe is steeped in a meru ways of njuri nsheke. To be at the end of njuri nsheke si mchezo. It's not a joke. You just don't pick any riffraff from anywhere and say this is an elder. We must know who you are amongst the Somali. We must know who you are amongst the Oromo, the Gata system. We must know who you are. Any community, we must know who you are, whether man or woman. Today, who do we choose as our leaders? Unamchukua mtu mfisadi, anajulikana mfisadi, anajulikana mfisadi, mwizi. Amekupa fedha ambazo ameiba, fedha hizo pia kaiba. Let me give you an example to just illustrate how this. There is a man in Tanzania called Edward Lowassa. How many of you have heard Edward Lowassa? He was actually about to be the president when he contested with John Joseph Pombe Magufuli. This is what happened very early on when he was a member of CCM. At a function, he came and donated money. Fedha nyingi tu. Mwalimu akauliza, fedha ametoa wapi? Kama kamekopa katalipaje? Na kama kaiba kutoka kwa nani? Akasema Lowassa hafai hata kiongozi wa kijiji. And Lowassa never ever after that time, despite his attempts and despite his popularity, watu wanasema lakini kauli ya mwalimu ilikuwa ni hafai. Sasa huku kwetu sifa mama Kenya ni ya kwamba usiwe mwizi kuchaguliwa, unakuwa jizi. Jizi, kama mwizi ni pwagu, basi wewe si pwagu, ni pwaguzi, basi tunakuchagua. So ukishamchagua Simba Marara kuwalinda mwanambuzi, sasa mwanambuzi wakipotea bado unashangaa na umemchagua Simba Marara. So we must give meaning to the things we say. Right now, as you go around the country, people have voided their degree certificates. People, we are the only country in the world that I know where when one is a professor, ukimuliza jina lako anasema mimi I'm professor. So you don't say that. That's not your name. You introduce yourself. If you ask what my name is PLO LUMUMBA. I'm not professor. It is somebody else who refers to me as such. I don't refer to myself as Dr. so and so. No. I don't say I'm honorable so and so. It is me. Hapa kwetu. Mtu anasema mimi ni honorable so and so. Nani amekuambia wewe horrible wewe? So those chapter 6, we must give it meaning. Hassan asked me a question, and this is what I want to conclude with. Not in so many words. Are we not judging ourselves too harshly? No. And yes, I've traveled in this continent, and one of the most amazing things about Kenyans, we are good. I went to Monrovia in Liberia, and I was in a hotel, and I wanted ugali, and then somebody said, nasikia mnazungumza unataka ugali. Mimi ni Mutiso kutoka Kenya, mimi ndio manager hapa. Nitakupikia ugali. And then we went into a conversation. He said, that greenhouse there, it is mine. Sisi ndio wa Kenya, sisi ndio wa kwanza kupanda sukuma wiki hapa. Liberia. Nimeenda Hargeisa, Mansour Hotel, Mkenya. Skylight Hotel, Ethiopia, Steve Cairo, Mkenya. There is not a single place that you go to in Hargeisa in Somaliland, 10,000 Kenyans. Usipompata Mkenya hata St. Kitts and Nevis, Costa Rica, utashanga sisi ni wazuri. In terms of human resource personnel wa Kenya, wazuri. And I dare say, there is not a single country in sub-Saharan Africa that has good men and women in every sector like Kenya. Perhaps we are only rivaled by two countries, Ghana and Nigeria. Ukienda walimu, Seychelles, Mauritius, Comoros, Namibia, Botswana, South Africa, teachers, Kenyans. Uenda Warabuni, madaktari, wauguzi wa Kenya. We are good. Tatizo letu ni uongozi. That is our problem. The day we solve that, the day we have our best men and women up there serving us selflessly, the day we give meaning to values, and to our chapter 6, the day we breathe life into our constitution, that is the day Kenya will realize our potential. As we were walking to enjoy tea in the morning, courtesy of the administration led by the good principal, I saw cabbages out there, and I said, behold, something is happening here. They feed themselves. When I talk about values, we can blame everybody else except ourselves. So today, I'm asking you, as we talk about values, what are you doing yourself? There is a poem that I want you to read. It's one of the greatest poems that I've ever read. Is done by Khalil Gibran, that great Lebanese American Khalil Gibran. It's called Fear. The poem is called Fear. When you read that poem, it is an exhortation to you. Wewe mwenyewe unafanya nini? In this quest for national values today, when you are going out there, ukibebwa na bodaboda na wanavunja kila sheria, je, unamkemea? Au wewe unataka tu kuendeshwa jinsi kihuni? Do you speak against it? Do you? Ukipata watu wamefanya foleni, unapita foleni? Do you want shortcuts? It starts with you. So today, there is a story told. Young people like yourself, Mr. President who spoke here. In my young days, I was also a president. And in those days, I believed I was going to change the world. When we say power, as we used to say, when we say Amandla, we used to say, we borrowed them from South Africa at that time. So when we went to Kamukunji, you would say Amandla. They say Gawe. You say Maibuye. You say Africa. We thought we could change the world. Then when we graduated, we discovered that the thing that we wanted most was a job. and that your mother's house needed to be built. So you toned down a little and you looked for jobs and you found one. And then at age 30 you discovered that the thing that you now wanted most was to have a family. So you started looking for, and you got your wife, then you thought now you would buy a house, then you have children, then you discovered that the only thing you want to deal with is your family. Now you are approaching 40 and the world you wanted to change has not changed. Then you are 50, you are discovering that you haven't bought a house, you can't afford a car. You go to get a mortgage in the bank, and at age 55 they are threatening to sell your house and your car together, and your wife is not very happy. You are now approaching 60, your children are at the university, you can't pay school fees. You are now approaching 70, and you discover that you are so closer to heaven. Now you begin worshiping and praying and fasting, and you discover that life is not that easy. You are now told there is these national values and all these things. Then you discover at age 75 that every part of your body is now aching, and before you leave, before you retire, you take in the form of medicine what is actually githeri. You take 17 tablets, and you discover that the only thing that you could have changed is yourself. It is because by changing yourself, that is how you change the world. And I'm urging you, change yourself. When you change yourself, then you will change the world. And I've said this times without number, and I'm repeating it. The forest cannot say the tree does not matter, because it takes trees to form the forest. The droplet and the ocean cannot say the droplets do not matter. It is out of the droplet that you have the ocean. And that is why Jibril says, when he talks about the river, when the river is flowing towards the ocean, the river fears that it's going to be consumed. And it reaches a point when the river knows that it cannot go back and it cannot go forth, and ultimately it enters the ocean, and it discovers that by entering the ocean, it does not cease to be a river, it only becomes part of a bigger thing. Be part of Kenya. This country, we must build it, and ultimately these old people are the ones who are going to guide you even as you change the world. Martin Shikuku was my very good friend. 2 days before he died, he called me. He was lying on his deathbed, or what turned out to his deathbed, at the private wing of Kenyatta Hospital. And when I went there, he told me, "Young man, we call you PLO. Are you him?" "Yes." I think he says, "Yes." I told him, "Say you called me." He told me, "I know you teach at the university and you practice law. At the university, do they teach wisdom? And do they teach experience?" I told him, "No." He told me, "I'm experienced. And experience comes with age. During that period, I've made mistakes. And I've also done good things." He told me, "Remain courageous, but don't be reckless." Do you see the wisdom? He told me, "Remain courageous, but don't be reckless." I remember those words. So you young men, I urge the spirit of courage to descend upon you. But don't be reckless. Don't be suicidal. But yet be prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice if it is necessary to do so. And because you are young, the last book that I commend to you is Bantu Stephen Biko. I write what I think. Go out there into the world and change the world, but begin by changing yourself. Once you have changed yourself, change Kenya, and once you have changed Kenya, change Africa, and once you have changed Africa, humanity will change, and you'll be able to say, like that great South African Mangaliso Sobukwe once said, there is only one race in the world, the human race, and it only requires one thing, good men and women who have values. Kwa Kiswahili, watu ambao wana maadili, watu ambao wanatambua miko, taboos and maadili, na watu ambao wana haya. Kama huna haya, huwezi kuwa mtu mzuri. Mnanielewa? Lazima uwe na haya. Kwa hivyo, ndugu wazalendo, nawatakia mema. Nimezungumza mengi tu. Nimezungumza mengi kwa kuwa kuna vitu ambavyo vinastahili kuzungumziwa, na nina hakika kama Wakenya tuna jukumu la kulijenga Kenya, na hiki ni kitu ambacho kitafanyika kupitia kwa vizazi. Lako ni kutoa mchango wako. Ni kama mbio za kupokezana vijiti. Wenzetu hawa wamekimbia, sasa watawapa vijiti. Nanyi pia mpitishe kijiti hicho mpaka siku ya kiyama itafanyika, kwa kuwa atafutaye hachoki, akichoka keshapata. Na mtaka cha uvunguni sharti ainame. Na Waswahili pia wanasema, msishabikie vitu ambavyo havifai, mnashabikia vitu ambavyo vinafaa. Waswahili wanasema hivi, viwi mwa vilamba vyombo, vyema mtavilaje? Kama vitu vibaya mnavishabikia, vitu vizuri si mtameza vyombo? Na la mwisho ni hili, chabilecho wahenga, mlilala handingwa, mwe macho haambiwi tule. Nani analielewa semi hiyo? Akipata nitampa shilingi 1000 kwa vijana. Mlilala handingwa, mwe macho haambiwi tule. Nani atalipa mfunua apate shilingi 1000 za Kenya, si za Sudan? Basi hebu eleza. Mlilala handingwa, mwe macho haambiwi tule. Mlilala handingwa, mwe macho haambiwi tule. Hebu jaribu. Maana kwa urahisi.
Okay, najaribu tu. Inamaanisha kama chakula kimeandaliwa, hautangoja kuambiwa ukule, utakula tu.
Basi umeipata. Kwa hivyo chakula kimeandaliwa cha maadili, your values. Sasa mnataka muitwe kwa mbwembwe na vinderemo na vifijo. Mlilala handingwa, mwe macho haambiwi tule. Asante.